Hey everyone, Minutia Minute here, coming at you guys with a little bit of a different video. We tried recording this video on the way home, but it didn't really work, so we're gonna do it while we eat ice cream instead. Because we just got out of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and now we're gonna tell you about what we thought of it.
We are mad.
Well, let's just start with one nice thing about the movie, and then we'll give a little bit of an overview of kind of where we're coming at it from. Spoilers for everything we say, if anybody's worried about that. Kate, what's your favorite part of the movie?
You know, I've been thinking about this, and I still don't really have a good answer. Zombie Doctor Strange was probably my favorite part. Basically, any time that Sam Raimi got to do Sam Raimi in this movie was my favorite part.
Which was semi-often. Like, sporadically a lot.
Yeah, they gave him some opportunities to Raimi out.
My favorite part of the movie was when Bruce Campbell got mustard in his face.
That was pretty good, and I did forget about that.
So, where we're coming at this, guys, we have not watched WandaVision.
We've not.
Nor should we have to. I was not a huge fan of the original Doctor Strange movie because I felt like all his special powers basically boiled down to, making saw blades out of magic discs and cutting buses in half. Basically the Green Lantern problem of he has all this incredible stuff that he can do and he just makes a big fist and punches someone in the face. And it's like, that's just not that creative or interesting. The thing that sold me on the first Doctor Strange movie was really just the ending with Dormammu and him doing like the time loop, because that was something a little bit more clever. And what I'll give this movie is, overall, I felt like it was more clever as a whole. But where this movie gets in the weeds is you really do have to have seen WandaVision, it feels like. And we'll talk about Scarlet Witch and how that all kind of plays out and whether that worked or not for us, but there is definitely a heavy reliance on you already being invested in that character and what she went through in a Disney Plus show.
I mean, we assume it would have been a more fulfilling experience.
Now it's like other media that you have to go pay for and seek out and be subscribed to watch. You can't even buy it. You have to subscribe to a service.
Right.
In order to get everything out of a movie that you paid $15 to go see.
Right. And that, as someone who did read about it before we went and saw it, that actually I think is the problem people have with it, is that there's like so much going on that it does assume you have a feel for this WandaVision universe.
Yeah, I think Marvel's going to have problems in the future with this. I mean, it's like, because right now is when they need to be course correcting to make their stuff more accessible. And instead, the big tentpole May 6th summer release is something that is only designed to appeal to the people who have already seen everything. And that's going to be a big problem moving forward if that's what they're going to keep doing.
I'll be honest, if you didn't make me go see all of these movies for the last 10 years...
Oh yeah, you would have already long been gone.
I would have been gone so long ago.
Well, it's going to hit a brick wall pretty soon because I'm supposed to be the core audience and they're losing me pretty fast. Ever since Black Widow came out, I've been really pretty disinterested in what they've had to offer, and every single movie I've seen since then has been less than I was hoping for it to be, even going in with low expectations for things like Shang-Chi and Eternals. I had very low expectations for, and I was just so angry at the end of that movie.
You hated Shang-Chi like so much, like it was laughable.
Black Widow's the worst one.
Did I see Black Widow?
Right.
Did I?
Yeah, that's the one.
Legitimate question.
He controls women with his iPad. You remember that?
I don't think I watched that one with you.
And therefore feminism.
Maybe I did miss. See, maybe I've missed some.
No, you saw it. You made me go. I didn't want to go. Don't you remember?
I thought that was the story.
You're like, if we go see the movie with the men, we gotta see the movie with the women. Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into some of the particulars of the movie before all of our ice cream melts. I feel like that scene in Jurassic Park where he's eating ice cream. And he's lamenting velociraptors or whatever. The big hinge point on this movie is Doctor Strange is a horse's ass, just like he was in the first movie. He has to stop being so self-centered and trust in other people.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I take issue with that because in Infinity War, he had to allow himself to be disintegrated in order for everyone else to do all the work and win in the end. And he had to have faith that that was the only way they could win. And so saying that he's still in this place where he's always got to hold the knife, quote unquote, is just nonsensical to me. This manifests itself with America Chavez, who can travel through multiple dimensions, and there's a question of whether or not Doctor Strange will steal her powers for himself because he's the one who can handle it, or lift her up and help her be her best self. Scarlet Witch is upset because in other dimensions she has kids and in this one she doesn't, and so she's the villain. I would say that in some ways was a high point in the movie, at least on paper, especially because at the end, he doesn't bash her head in with a shovel, but instead she has to make an emotional change and make the right decision and choose the better path, which I appreciated. It wasn't just a giant blue laser in the sky at the end.
First of all, I do want to say I called that she was going to be the villain from the very first teaser trailer. Less interesting than I wanted it to be.
Why was it less interesting?
Because of the whole motherhood angle. The only thing, she has access to infinite powers and infinite universes, and the only thing that's going to satisfy her is being a mother to possibly the lamest little boys in the entire Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be a mother. I love kids. It's not having anything to do with that, but I do get really annoyed when they're like,
she just has to be a barefoot housewife to feel better about herself.
Yeah, it's like
that's
all you want in the whole world. That's
just to be a mom.
Yeah.
The reason for me it doesn't work in this movie is because anytime you try to have characterization or emotion in these movies, it just comes off really flat. You talked about the kids, and they're just these idyllic, generic kids who sing "Row, row, row your boat."
Literally make up a song about if you give us ice cream, we'll be good boys.
Yeah, that was horrendously embarrassing.
Literally laughable.
And maybe it works in the context of the WandaVision where they're playing off of sitcoms. Now we're in a different movie, it's in a different context, and it doesn't work. And a lot of the interactions in this movie play like that. Doctor Strange has several interactions with Rachel McAdams, who does not need to be in this movie. Her character serves no purpose.
I did not remember her being part of the first movie, even though
in the first movie she was
the plot, right?
The standard romantic interest character. And in the sequel, he's doing all this stuff with America Chavez, and so you don't actually need Rachel McAdams to exist in this movie, but they shoehorn her in because this is a sequel to Doctor Strange. And basically they should have given everything that happened with Rachel McAdams to America Chavez and just make that one character. The dialogue is so clunky. The direction is flat. The blocking is TV blocking. Yeah. And there's just no life in it whatsoever. And this is where I have to circle back to Iron Man 2 because as much as that movie is a mess, I still actually have a lot of fun watching that movie. It's not a good movie necessarily, but it has a lot of personality. The characters are riffing off of each other. There's interesting dynamic setups. Jon Favreau lets them improv and builds these characters in a very natural way. And now that we're so far into this universe and everything is just, a cookie cutter conveyor belt situation, that has completely left the cinematic universe ever since Robert Downey Jr. left. And we're just getting further and further away, and we're stuck with a block of wood with a goatee on. This movie has some pretty big teases for presumably the future, and then just a lot of internet fan service of things that I know people on the internet want, and they put it in this movie. So the really big nerd moment in this movie is when Doctor Strange goes to an alternate universe where the Illuminati exist.
Yes.
And he meets Patrick Stewart as an old Professor Xavier, and then we get Captain Carter.
Captain Carter was cool. That was exciting.
That was actually pretty great.
As a fan of Agent Carter, that was fun.
And see, that was a character that felt earned because they've done so much with her already. That was a fun payoff for something we've seen before, as opposed to let's just shoehorn Black Captain Marvel in this, which is fine, but it's it doesn't really have that much impact, whereas seeing Carter with the shield and all that stuff was great. That was actually genuinely satisfying.
She was badass.
And then the part that for me was probably the cringiest was John Krasinski as Reed Richards, just because that's fan casting. I question that that's really the right decision to put him in the role. Either way, it felt like John Krasinski rolled out of bed and showed up on set one day.
Yeah, and as a John Krasinski fan, I was pretty excited, just because I had no idea that he was going to pop up.
But you weren't excited because of all the internet fervor about it.
Correct.
You were excited because you like John Krasinski.
I was excited because John Krasinski was there, and I think he's fun.
He's fun.
And that's all really. Not as excited as I was to see Professor X roll out though. I really that was like genuinely. I think I grabbed your knee and I was like,
Yeah. It was a highlight in the sense that he was in the yellow chair, which was great, and there was just a tiny hint of the X-Men 90s soundtrack that got me. But it was purely a nostalgia bomb. Like, it wasn't really anything. And the more we got into that, and we talked about this in the car on the way home, Patrick Stewart, I just wish he could retire in peace, but they keep rolling him out. And especially in this movie, I really get the impression that his handler left the gate open and he just wandered onto set. And they're like, oh, right this way. And they just put him in the chair and just told him to act naturally.
We don't agree about this.
And then people walk up to him and say their lines. He's just like, what's going on? It's horrible.
You just really want to put Patrick Stewart out to pasture, and I think he's not ready. I think that he really covets the role of Professor X, and I think he was very excited to come back and they gave him his own little part, right, where he got to be in what was it? Was it Scarlet Witch's dream universe? Is that where they were?
I don't even remember. He goes inside of
her dreams,
her
right?
brain. He goes inside of her brain while she's possessed.
Yes.
That's what it was.
And they gave him like a little something to do. He didn't have to sit in the chair the whole time.
They promised him oatmeal.
Stop. God. he's not, I mean, I just feel like he's going to be.
It's just depressing.
I didn't get that. I was a little bit like, because he rolls in literally, and like they show the chair first and then they pan up. And I did have a moment of like, oh my God, he is so old.
The thing is, here's the mistake they made maybe. He goes against everyone else on the council, and you're just like, this guy's not making sound decisions because he has dementia. And then they put him on his feet, and he has to perform a feat of strength by taking her out from underneath the rubble, which also just accentuates how ridiculous that is because he is so old and frail. And it's like, you shouldn't put him in these situations to draw attention to the fact of how old and inappropriate it is to put Patrick Stewart in those situations at this point.
We just don't agree about that. We just don't. I thought he was a fun treat.
I thought it was a nice gesture.
Fine.
But I really do think, I just question that he knows he's even in this movie.
You're terrible.
We already talked a little bit about it, but I guess we'll just wrap up with like the Sam Raimi-isms because that really was the main driving force of why I was like, okay, let's just actually go see this one. He had a couple great moments in Spider-Man where he got to do sort of classic Sam Raimi, like the stuff he can do in his sleep. And those moments were always parts in those movies that I looked forward to, and it was nice to see that when he showed up in this, like, there's a lot of great classic Sam Raimi-isms in this. They really played up the witch aspect of Scarlet Witch, which made for some great sort of dragging me to hell moments throughout the movie. When she's stalking her other self in the alternate dimension, it feels like Evil Dead, where the camera is the personification of Scarlet Witch, except it's in a suburban home instead of, a cabin in the woods. And even some of the action sequences, and I don't know if people are not into some of the action sequences in this because they get pretty corny, but I love the corniness of them, and it felt very Sam Raimi. In particular, there's a sequence where he has a music fight with various notes that he's flinging at his opponent, which I thought that just kind of tickled me pink because it was just something different.
It really did. You giggled.
It just made me laugh. Like, it was fun and it was funny. The only problem is the score in this movie wasn't very good, and so the score in that moment was also pretty kind of generic and by the numbers, but the idea of it was fun, and I got a kick out of that.
It was cool.
Zombie... Oh, sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to say Zombie was probably the most Evil Dead-ish moment was Zombie Doctor Strange coming to life and saving the day at the end like Evil Ash.
That was straight up, like, literally he emerges from his shallow grave by sticking the hand up.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And pulling himself out of the dirt. That was that could have been in Evil Dead. It was great. It was a good moment.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, as we're wrapping up here, like, bottom line, like, I can point to a lot of great things in this movie. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Sam Raimi moments I liked. There's a lot of sort of concepts that maybe they didn't play out the best, but in concept I like them. But at the end of the day, this is a lot of different movies in one movie, and so it just totally is a mess. The emotion stuff doesn't land the way it should, and the Sam Raimi stuff is great, but it feels like a whole nother movie.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you're watching a really bad Marvel movie, and then sometimes you're watching stuff that Sam Raimi directed, and it's like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And then if you could just cut those moments together into a shorter movie, it might have been a good time, but unfortunately, this movie felt really long.
You can't make it a shorter movie because then it would just be an hour-long TV special. It was, what was it, an hour and 40 minutes, or was it a straight
the movie was 2 hours flat.
Oh.
And it was really pretty mind-boggling how long it felt. We went to see it at the Alamo, and I kept looking for my check.
Yeah.
And
it's
never
bad
came.
when you start looking for the check to come,
yeah.
So you know that there's only 20 minutes left in the movie.
And as much as I'm like stir crazy these days, because I just find myself preferring shorter movies, like we just sat through The Northman, which is a solid 2.5 hours, and I felt like I'd been watching the movie for 20 minutes when our checks came for that movie.
That's true.
And so like, it's not that I don't have the attention span, it's that this movie did not hold my attention.
No. Not even worthy of its small time span, unfortunately. But,
go see it.
Go see it or not.
Or don't. I don't really care.
And you know what? Marvel doesn't either, because they've already made their money back. Like, everyone went to see it this weekend.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it didn't. It did fine.
I mean, no
there's
joke.
There's like nothing else going on right now.
Right. Because this is the big summer movie.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the big summer movie, and it's just like... It's just not good.
Yeah.
As terrible as DC's movies are, they generally swing for the fences and just whiff it. Which I appreciate more than, walking everyone to home plate every time.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Yuck.
All right.
We're done.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Hope you guys have a great week in movies and comics.
Wow, that's nice.